So cool. I call to order the Adrian City Commission meeting for December 16th, 2024. If everyone would please rise for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Present.
Commissioner Banky,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Present.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Present.
Commissioner Miller,
Present.
and Commissioner Gauss.
Present.
All commission members present.
At this time, we will call up our Chief Emmerich, and he's going to do some swearing in of new officers.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Chief Emmerich, City of Adrian Police Department. As you know, we've had some turnover this year. We've had a number of retirements. Our retirements included Lieutenant Derek Kalinsky, Sergeant William Deschamps, Sergeant John Payne, Detective Greg Lanford, Officer Paula West, and here most recently, Officer Jeff Rates. So all of those officers have retired. We went back through, and after testing and evaluation, we promoted a number of individuals. We promoted Sergeant Joe Wisniewski to the rank of lieutenant. We promoted Officer Alyssa Monette to the rank of sergeant. We promoted Officer Michaela Snowberger to the rank of sergeant, and Officer Rose Nieto to the rank of detective. So with me tonight are some of our new hires. They are in the field training program. They're working as patrol officers. If you guys would come up as I call your name, we'll start with Jaden Kaplan. So Officer Kaplan, he's a graduate of Airport High School, where he played basketball and ran track. He was previously employed as a carpenter before attending Wayne County Regional Academy for us. We have Officer Victor Duarte Peralta. He's an Adrian High School graduate. He has an associate's degree in criminal justice from Jackson College, and he was previously employed by the Lenawee County Sheriff's Department. We have Officer Zachary Major. He's a graduate of Divine Child High School. He attended Adrian College, where he obtained his bachelor's and master's degrees in criminal justice, and he was also previously employed by the Lenawee County Sheriff's Department. So if you three gentlemen would join me up front here, we'll swear in.
Okay, go ahead and raise your right hand, please. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of police officer in and for the city of Adrian, city or county of Lenawee, and state of Michigan, according to the best of my ability.
Sorry, didn't see over there.
They're shy.
I should have been faster myself. Thank you, guys.
Let's give him another round of applause. At this At this time, we will now have public comment on items on the agenda. There is going to be a public hearing, but that is going to be in a little while after we go through public comment and our work study session. So this is for public comment regarding items on the agenda. If you have any public comment for items on the agenda, you may approach and speak into the microphone. You'll have a 3-minute time limit. And for the record, please state your name and address, our place of residence. But the public hearing is different than this. So if it is about the public hearing for the public nuisance, that'll be in a little bit. So this is just for regular items on the agenda. And just to reiterate that commissioners may not respond to public comment. This is only for you to make public comment. It is not dialogue back and forth. So I just want to clarify that and make sure everybody is aware of that. After we have exhausted all public comment inside the chambers, we will then open it up to the Zoom participants for the items on the agenda. At this time, we will open it up to the Zoom participants. Hearing no public comment, we will now move on to the work study session, and I will hand it over to our city administrator, Greg Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. So our first item for work session is our annual audit presentation, and Nathan Owen and our auditors are here to do that for you, and so I will turn it over to them. I think there's a PowerPoint that they're going to go through as well, which you should be able to see up on the screen. So whoever wants to start, Brian, you going to start?
All right, thank you. Thanks for having us again this year. It's my annual trip in December to Adrian. I get to see the lights and the trees and everything. So thanks for having me. So first, I think we have up now is the proposal is for later. But do you have the audit presentation slides?
It's in the pack. It's in the packet. It's up at the beginning of the packet.
But I'll go ahead and just start. And so what I'm going to do is go over the highlight summary of our audit reports and then touch on some high-level financial statement trends that we saw in our audit. First of all, this year we issued 2 reports in accordance with or under the scope of our audit. Sometimes we issue 3, and that just depends. That 3rd report is in accordance with uniform grant guidance, and that relates to major federal programs. For the year under audit, which is the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024, you did not expend more than $750,000 in federal awards, so we did not do an audit in accordance with uniform guidance this year. So the 2 reports that we issued was one was our opinion on the financial statements, and that was an unmodified opinion. That's commonly referred to as a clean audit opinion. It's what you should hope to get with every audit. And then we also issued a report in accordance with government auditing standards. And in that report, we would identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls, as well as any material noncompliance with, that could be with state laws, with city ordinances or rules and regulations. And we have none of those items to report. So a very boilerplate report for both our opinion on the financial statements and the report in accordance with government auditing standards. So no control issues or noncompliance to report this year. The next slide is just some required communications to this city commission. Within our financial statements, there's no transactions which lacked authoritative guidance. Everything was very clear on how it should be recorded. There are also no material misstatements that were required to be reported in the financial statements, which is important to you. That tells me that what you're seeing throughout the year is correct as well from Nathan and his team. We also had no disagreements with management or difficulties in dealing with management. Everything that we asked for is provided to us in a timely fashion. So all in all, a very good audit process this year. Then just some high level things to call out in the financial statements. These first couple of slides look at the city as a whole, your financial statements as a whole. So that includes both governmental activities and business type activities, all the capital assets and long-term debt of the city. And you can see some changes in assets and deferred outflows. The decrease in cash and cash equivalents of almost $500,000 was mainly in business type activities. That was due to debt service payments, investments in capital assets, and things of that nature. And then the decrease in capital assets, you have about $4.8 million in annual depreciation on those assets. And so you have that as a decrease, and then you also had $4.4 million in additions to capital assets. So that resulted in a net decrease in capital assets of just $400,000. And then the deferred outflows and of resources relates mainly to the pension plan, and that's some of the actuarial liability calculation that gets recorded. The next slide looks at changes in liabilities and deferred inflows. Your long-term debt decreased by $2.2 million, and that's mainly due to your principal payments on that debt. There's no new bonds issued or anything during the year. So that $2.2 million decrease is principal payments. And then you can see your net pension liability decreased by about $800,000, and deferred inflows related to that plan decreased by about $100,000. So overall, your net pension obligations have decreased slightly based on investment returns being better than expected within the actuarial calculation. Slide 6 looks at a more long-term view of net position, and this is with governmental activities. And you can see kind of a steady increase in net position year over year in governmental activities. In 2019, it was at $25.4 million. In 2024, is $32.1 million. So then the question is, where is that $32.1 million sitting? And you can see that it's not actually cash and cash equivalents, but on the next slide, the breakdown of what's in governmental activities, $27.3 million is net investment of capital assets. That's all the city's roads, infrastructure, buildings, and improvements, less depreciation and related debt. You also have $8.1 million in restricted net positions. So those restrictions are for debt service, for capital projects, grant restrictions, things like that. And then your unrestricted net position is actually a negative $3.3 million, which sounds worse than what it is. What's driving that negative unrestricted net position is all the pension, actuarial pension liability calculation. If you take that liability off, you would actually have a positive $14.9 million in unrestricted net position. So, and that picture that you see of the negative unrestricted is similar to most local governments around because of the pension accounting. Slide 8 looks at the business type activities. So this is wastewater and water are your main business type activities. You can see net position has been fairly steady within that, which tells me that you're bringing in enough resources to pay debt, making investments in infrastructure, and really keeping your net position fairly stable over the years. And it was at $45.5 million at the end of 2024. How that breaks down on slide 9 is your net investment in capital assets, again, is the largest chunk of that. 91% is all of the infrastructure and equipment and everything that goes into those operations. You have restricted net position of 4% or about $1.7 million. And your unrestricted net position is $2.1 million. Keep in mind it's unrestricted in accounting terms, but it's to be used for those business type activities. The next two slides look at statement of activities, again, on a full accrual basis. And the pension accounting drives expenses on this quite a bit. So you'll see bigger swings in expenses. So we'll look at expenses when we talk about the general fund on its own. But you can see in governmental activities, revenue continues to increase up to $23.1 million in 2024. And a lot of those increases coming out of the pandemic have been pandemic-related grants, ARPA grants, CARES Act, and things like that. Business type activities, you can see that revenues and expenses have been fairly stable, staying right around that $10 million mark. You know, overall, your business type activities operate pretty much on a break-even standpoint for year over year on the GAAP basis. Slide 12 looks like general fund revenues and expenditures. So this is a lot closer to what you're looking at. This does not include capital assets and long-term debt, but it does include some accruals for payables and receivables and things like that. You can see general fund revenues and expenditures have both been steadily increasing from 2019 up to 2024. The revenues in 2019 were $12.2 million in the general fund. They've increased to $15.1 million in 2024. So pretty good growth in the revenue base, but expenditures kind of follow that. And again, you've been operating at pretty much break-even point in the general fund. You know, one of the main revenue sources is property tax revenue. We like to say sometimes that the good thing about property tax revenue is it's a stable source of revenue, and the bad thing is it's a stable source of revenue. It just kind of chugs along and turns out kind of, pretty consistent growth year over year, but you're never going to see, huge increases in that source of revenue without new levies. You can see that it was $4.9 million in 2019. It has grown to $6.5 million in 2024. So overall, pretty stable source of revenue for the city. And then you can see that in the general fund balance, everything that we just talked about, that back in 2019, you had a general fund balance of $5.5 million with some of the, if you go to the next slide, and you can see that that's grown to 2022 to 2024. It's been right around the $9.5 to $10 million mark, and it was $9.5 million at 2024. So overall, a very healthy general fund balance that you've built. If you look at the next slide, it talks a little bit more about that health, and it takes what's sitting in the general fund balance at the end of the year and divide that by your annual general fund revenues. And you have about 63% of your annual general fund revenues that is in your fund balance at year end. And so that helps, stabilize some of the cash flows that you see. And that's about 7.5 months worth of revenues that you have in your general fund balance. Yeah.
I was looking at this ahead of time and I did have a question on this. It seems like 2022 is always a jump for everything. Is that just because of post-pandemic money and
lot,
ARPA funds and things like
Yeah,
that?
you had realized all of the CARES Act funding by that point, and then some of the ARPA funding
Okay.
had come in. Yeah, so that's a lot of that. And remember, the CARES Act, while it was, to remediate some of the impacts of the pandemic, a lot of it was typical general fund expenditures that are being charged to those grants. So that helped the general fund of your city and frankly all local governments. Yeah. And the last two slides look at the major enterprise funds. So these are the business type activities broken out by the different funds, wastewater and water. And you can see really from an operating income, there had been some operating incomes from 2020 to 2022, and then some losses in 23 and 24. And really, this is what we see at most enterprise funds that over the life of those funds, they operate on a break-even standpoint. You're just charging charges for services in order to pay for future investments and for debt service. And you can see on the cash flow is probably more important than operating income is operating cash flow. It's important for these funds to continue to churn off operating cash flow. And you can see they have done that in 2024. You had $1.1 million in operating cash flow in water and $1.6 million in wastewater. And those funds are used for, again, investments in capital assets and payments on debt that was used to fund historic capital asset purchases. So overall, it's what we would expect to see from those funds. And that's all that I had to report on, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have on the audit or the financial statements.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
All right. Thanks a lot.
So we do have an item on consent agenda for acceptance of the audit for the commission's benefit. So the next thing we want to talk about at work session is the Adrian Inn. I'm gonna let Burke start and kind of tell you where we're at with the current lessee, and then I want to talk about the future.
We have been working with Housing Help, and we do have a lease surrender agreement in place. We are now in the process of securing the vacant rooms. Housing Help in the city, I think, have been working together very well on this. There is a plan in place to hopefully have this done around the first of the year, although we don't control the courts if we do have people who stay. But we're in process, so I think now your next part of the discussion is, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, so just to expand on that a little bit, not everyone has left. Every Housing Help asked everyone who was there being rented a room to leave and gave them a notice to quit, and they have not all gone at this point, and so they're in the process of working through that, as Burke said, with the courts. However, there are vacant rooms which people have been moving into, and so we're anxious to secure those. And we have, the problem is that someone has a master key to those rooms. The way those rooms work out there is there's a physical master key. Guests would normally have a key card, but there's a physical master key, and somebody who had been there got a hold of it and has been kind of renting those out to their friends. So we're going to go through and disable that ability as we determine that the rooms are vacant. DPW is going to go out there and do that. And that's all kind of neither here nor there. That's the things, like Brooke said, that we're working through this month to try to get physical control of the facility. But, you know, we get inquiries about the property, and we at the commission level haven't really talked about its future other than back when we bought it. I think everybody kind of understood from discussions we had back at the time that we bought it, that it's tear down. We had a hotel operator go through at the time that we bought it, kind of hoping at that time that we could kind of go in together with that party and use it for a period of time for the Riverview Terrace residents, and then flip it to the hotel operator. And they told us at that time that they thought it was a tear down. We later had Krieghoff go through, went through with Krieghoff and actually looked at some of the items of concern, and came up with a very large number, which far exceeds the value of the property for the cost to make what they deemed to be the needed repairs to the property to bring it back to a marketable standard. And so that kind of confirms our expectation in that regard. So I just really wanted to put this on the agenda for you all to have a chance to weigh in on it. If anybody disagrees with that assessment, we have had interest from Adrian College in the property, obviously not to use the existing building, but in the property. We've had hotel operators reach out to us who I think are interested in using the building, and that I think is a non-starter. And just as a reminder for those who were not here when we bought it, one of the rationale, the primary rationale was obviously because it was for sale at the time, and there was the need to house the former residents of Riverview Terrace. That was the primary rationale, to provide a place for those folks who had been in various hotels since the building had been evacuated. Secondary rationale, however, was to eliminate what had been a nuisance to the city for a very long time. In fact, prior to buying the property, that we have on the agenda tonight, a public hearing on a property that we believe to be a drug house. This property had been declared to be a drug house by the city commission prior to us buying it, and we were in litigation with the then owner prior to buying the property. And so one of the motivations at the time that we bought it was also to eliminate that nuisance and to never have it again. And I think Chief would agree that we don't want this to be an occupied property in its current state, and it's not repairable in our opinion to a standard that would make it a desirable motel property in the future. And the thing that motivated the turn back of the property, because Housing Help had one more year on its lease, was the rental housing inspection that we did. And when they saw all the repairs that our rental housing inspector came up with based on the condition of the premises, they didn't feel like they want to take that on. And I certainly don't blame them for that. It served its purpose. Riverview Terrace is open. Anybody who wants to move back there can do that. We still have funds available to help those folks relocate. And we're working with Housing Help on the deployment of those funds. But my point on putting it on the agenda is to let you talk about what you see happening with the property once we secure it and have possession of it again. Give us some guidance as it relates to marketing the property, because we are getting inquiries about it. I will say one other thing, that I think it is possible to perhaps have two parcels there once the building is demolished. because there is quite a bit of property in the back, and it might be the case, we'd have to explore this, that property in the rear would be of interest to the college, and there still would be a commercial parcel out front that would be of a usable size as well. So I'll just open it up to your discussion.
Do we have any idea, any ballpark figure of what it would be to tear it down?
No, other than our experience with other properties, we're getting pretty experienced tearing down commercial buildings here lately. We haven't taken the bids yet for the Telegram properties, but we're expecting those will come in 500,000 in change probably. This might be a little bigger job than that. Maybe not as complicated because it's not as old a building. But you know, somewhere in that 500 to 750 range, I would think.
So is it our responsibility, or do you think that there are buyers out there that would buy it with the stipulation that they take care of the tear down?
The estimate that we got of the market value of the property at the time that we bought it from the broker we bought it from was, if the building were not there, it would be worth $1 million, right? And so if that's so, and I have no reason to doubt that that is so, you know, and the cost of tearing it down is something less than $1 million, then there should be people who would be willing to take that on, you know, and still pay us a little bit, not very much, not what we paid for it, which was 800,000, as I recall. The thing that's going to come into play once we have physical possession of the property is, as I say, keeping it secure. The buildings that we have currently that are waiting tear down, the Telegram properties, the title company building on Winter Street, all of those have been broken into, and we've had people living in all those properties. And so that's going to be even more true of this property as time goes on. And so we won't want to wait any longer than we have to get the building down.
Is there concern about asbestos? Will that slow the demolition down and increase costs?
It'll be a part of the process. You know, there will be an abatement component to it, as there has been with our other commercial properties that we've torn down here recently or in the process of tearing down. You know, it's a newer building, so I think so. It may not be as big a deal as it has been with some others.
Any other chemical concerns from, I guess, the only thing I could think of would be former pool or things like that, that would raise contamination risks?
Not that I'm aware of.
And then would this property qualify for the environmental justice grant that we received?
Well, we haven't received it. We've applied for it.
Okay.
We still
Would
have.
that be eligible for a future rendition of that grant?
Potentially. I don't know if there's another round of those upcoming, but you know, potentially. But like I say, we did not to count our chickens before they're hatched, because we don't know. We've been promised an award decision in October, and then by the end of November, and now it's well into December, and we don't know.
In your opinion, is it more advantageous to demolish the building and sell the property at that higher price because there's no building there and they can come in at, you know, at that cost? Or is it because somebody may not want to take on demoing a building, or is it better to offer a much lower price with the stipulation that they demo the building? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, my recommendation would be that we demolish it as soon as we possibly can, for the reason that I said, that I think it's going to be a problem keeping it secure. And, you know, also what you said is true, that the property will be more marketable with the building demolished.
Greg, you mentioned that there was an interested party. Do you have other plans for marketing it other than just having people come forward and say, hey, I'd like to buy the property?
Not until we decide not until we have physical possession of it,
Right.
and not until we decide what our approach is going to be as it relates to demolition first, versus trying to find somebody who would be willing to take demolition on.
So when you mentioned how many people are still in that space, how many people are we talking about that we are trying to move out of that place?
I saw the list. I would estimate it's about 30.
30.
But how many you know are there or how many are secretly?
Yeah, that's how many housing help knows are there with authority or were there with authority.
Would we be moving too fast if we started to secure a bid to demolish that building?
The work, we're gonna have to have access, unfettered access for an abatement contractor to go through first,
Yeah.
the specialist abatement contractor. So I don't think we're ready to start with the
Good.
bidding process yet.
All right.
I think there's more than one person interested in the property. In fact, I know that. So I think it would behoove us to accept offers based on our expectations and things like that before we make any decisions.
Yeah, those that I've been aware of who wanted to operate a motel. And I guess my principal goal in bringing this up tonight is to try to draw a line under that if I can, if that's your opinion, that it should not be that we should not entertain any offers that propose to reuse that building. And that kind of gives us some guidance to have discussions. Those that I've been approached by have wanted, so other than the college, have wanted to reuse the building.
Were they willing to invest the monies needed to fix it up?
Well, they don't know, right? And that's the thing. And the reality is the building is not reusable. And no one would spend the money needed, which is on the order of millions of dollars, to bring it up to code. And so my great fear is that we would get what we had before, which is somebody operating a low-cost motel, which becomes a nuisance to the city. So I guess I'll ask the question, is there anyone who disagrees with the premise that that building should be torn down as part of the reuse process?
No, it needs to come down.
I'm agreeable to that, but
I
so
don't,
we've got, I'm sorry, Mary. The people who are living there or have moved in without authorization, how are we going to get them out?
Well, I mean, that depends on whether we encounter them when we go out and look at the rooms or not. If somebody comes in, Bert can tell you better than I can about this, but if somebody comes into possession of premises lawfully, then the only way to get them out is the eviction. If they're a trespasser, then they can be trespassed out. Right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Who's in charge of the evictions? Is that still Housing Help since they were their clients, or?
We are working together on the evictions. Housing Help sent out the notices to quit, and we will assist them in seeing those through.
So as they continue to live there, they're still going to have heat and power and water and basic necessities, right? That's not going to be shut off
Yeah,
for them.
we can't legally shut
Okay,
that off.
just re-emphasizing that. And then, I agree too with the demo of the building. I, would be remiss to say that if in future weeks and future months, as we're hopefully awarded that grant, that would talk about future funding for another grant, and that we don't use the haste and speed of wanting to get this building down to use $800,000 of general fund to purchase this building, and then an additional $500,000 to demo that building at $1.3 million, when there's grant opportunities that may, and I do stress the may, exist that could take that burden off of the city's general fund to demo it.
Yeah, well, we'll certainly look at what those opportunities.
Greg,
are.
if you could keep us updated on that, I do think there's a fine balance of that and assuring safety. That building is not safe and people are already breaking into it, and it's easy access right off the freeway there, and there's not a lot of view watching it. So I do think we need to balance safety with that as well. So
Yep.
I too don't, many of the business owners in that area are having a lot of trouble lately.
Right.
With residents, a lot of trouble with
Yep.
those, with people from there.
I'm aware of that. Is there any other discussion related to that? Anyone have anything else they want to share or instruct staff?
I would just also think, the fact that they tore down the Club Eclipse and, put a new piece of commercial property on the tax rolls, that there could be some interest in that way, or at least marketing ahead of time. We see that with the hospital and the demo there with how that's working out. So there could be some private-public partnerships moving forward on that too, that we could consider as the word gets out from the media as well.
Yeah, no, it's not dissimilar from the hospital situation, except that ProMedica is infusing a fair amount of money into that deal. It's more like, here the property's free, plus here's a lot of money to tear it down. Hopefully, if this isn't going to go that way. Right, if there's no other discussion on that, are there any other items commissioners have for work session? Hearing none, Mayor, I'll turn it back to you.
May I get a motion to approve the agenda?
so moved.
I'd like to edit that so that we remove the resolution for the city commission meeting schedule to be removed from the consent agenda. There's several errors on that document.
Are you okay with the motion with that amendment? Okay. May I get a second?
Support.
We have a motion from Commissioner Castleberry with a second from Commissioner Roberts to approve the agenda with the movement of CR 24-135, approving the city commission meeting schedule to the regular agenda. May I roll call, please?
Commissioner Banky,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry.
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
and Mayor Heath.
Yes.
Motion carried.
May I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion from Commissioner Banky with a second from Commissioner Roberts. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Banky,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving on to our regular agenda, under special orders. Special Order -1 is a public hearing to hear and consider comments regarding a declaration of public nuisance of 616 East Front Street. At this time, we will begin the public hearing. You may come up to the microphone. There will be a 3-minute time limit, and for the record, please state your name and place of residence. I now call the public hearing to order.
I'm kind of new at this, so my name is Debbie. I prefer not to give my last name for retaliation because I live in that area. I've lived in my house for 35 years and I live around the corner on Finch Street. I'm hoping you will seriously consider boarding up this property. This house has been a constant nuisance in our neighborhood. On weekends, cars line my street in front of my house, in front of the neighbors. Late at night, I don't sleep well, so I hear car banging doors or doors banging their whatever. And I go out and look, and there's cars, people sitting in them. Somebody gets out, walks around the corner. About 15 minutes later, they come back, get in the car and leave. There's one in particular, it's a maroon car, an old car. It's a lady. She continually comes week after week after week. There are young men who walk up and down our street carrying backpacks all hours of the day and night. A few years ago, a young man came through a fence coming off of Comstock Street behind me. The fence had a hole. He came walking through. He tried to get into my house. It was broad daylight. He was staggering. You could tell he was high as a kite. He came to my door, kept rattling the door. Stupid me opened the door. I asked him what he wanted. He said, I'm trying to get into my house. I said, you don't live here. I said, get off my porch and go home. I called the 911. A police officer said, please keep an eye on him. So I did. I watched and watched. The police came. I told him he'd went around the corner. He was standing on the porch trying to figure out how to get in the house. He took his shoes off, ran around in the yard. Sooner or later, he found a key. He walked right in. There have been multiple raids on that house. There have been shootings at that house. Several years ago, a couple cars went right past my house shooting. The police came and found the bullets. But we're asking, and I believe I was told, and I've talked to the owner just now, but I was told that there are hasn't been any utilities in there, so I don't know, but the owner says there are now. But our neighborhood would surely appreciate any help you could give us. There was a large drug house on that corner, but the gentleman that bought it has cleaned it up immensely. They have had no problems in years with any drugs. So if you could help our neighborhood stay clean and get rid of them, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Ingrid. I don't want to say where I live because I'm with her. I'm on the other corner and I fear retaliation. I fear the same thing she goes through. In the middle of the afternoon, there's a white van pulls out in front of my house and drops off 7 teenagers, no more than 15 to 12 years old, and they all run down the street and around the corner to the drug house. I call the police at that time and I say, officer, I have nothing to report. I just would like to tell you the story so that you can drive by, because when they see you, that's a deterrence. That was my only reason for calling the police. The kids did nothing wrong, but they always do something wrong. There's problems. Like she said, there has been a shooting. I have the piece of screen and the plastic that was on my porch where the bullet went through my porch. And I cut that out for my own keeping. So if you can do something about this house, board it up, burn it down, greatly appreciate it. Thank you for listening.
Gail Dunaway, 423 Elm Street, and I am not afraid of retaliation. I used to live in Chicago, worked on the south side of Chicago, walked into a robbery at 63rd and Cottage. I'm not afraid of retaliation. But this house has been a nuisance from the time that the current owner acquired it. It was a $500 HUD house. And HUD rules state that one must live in the house. They can't rent it out for a whole year. This individual did not. He was up at his girlfriend's up in Onstead most of the time. He was supposed to repair the house within a year. He did not. He eventually did, but, and it's been reported to the blight people. It's, the backyard had a van and pallets and just all kinds of nonsense. And that now we get to the current situation with the drug issues, and talk to the neighbors. They say it's 3 o'clock in the morning. That's when you need to send the cops. And we have a couple of families, long-term families, live there over 30 years. They have adult children who live at home, and these are special needs people. This should not have ever happened, and it should not continue.
I do know for a fact, but I cannot go on the property because that's trespassing. I do know for a fact that the white apartment house she's talking about, the owner has been here several times in the meetings, and he also owns a house next door. They plugged in, when their power was shut off, they plugged into his electricity. He claims they stole it. If I come home from work and there's a cord, an orange cord standing out, I'm not touching it. I don't want to put my fingerprints on it because I'm going to call the police and say somebody's plugged into my garage. That's theft. He didn't call them, he didn't call the police. He helps them. When they get shut off, they potty, number 2, in a 5-gallon bucket out back. That's really important. Again, I know it to be a fact, but I can't walk on the property to prove it. I couldn't take pictures.
I am Jennifer Girdham. I'm the treasurer for the city of Adrian. I also live around the corner from this property. And for the past minimum 5 years, it has been a series of just calamities with utilities and the house being in crisis, being shut off. I've witnessed used toilet tissue thrown over into neighbors' backyards. I've also, my husband and my father-in-law were outside in our driveway when there was a shooting in broad daylight. I've witnessed at least one raid this year by Rhino. I unfortunately don't believe that if this remains, if it's not deemed a public nuisance, that anything will change at this property. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Jen.
I'm Mark Klein. I live at 616. I own the house. I didn't pay $500 for my house. I do have utilities other than water. I plugged in one time from this neighbor and he knows about it and he let me do it for a little while. Because at that time I was ill. It's kind of hard to get up and do stuff when you don't have a vehicle that's running where you can get it out. Because I have a trailer full of other stuff cleaned up the backyard. Nobody goes out back and goes to the bathroom. I have a toilet and I have water at all times pretty much. So, and as far as the raids, yes, we got a raid. The CI, the one that turned it in, it said that Will was there. We found that out because of his paperwork, because he's still in jail for that or whatever. I'm not sure. I didn't know he had a warrant. I didn't know he was on probation, anything. He stayed there with another girl that I kind of let stay there because she has nowhere to go when she comes into town. All right, it's hard to kick people out unless you're like a lot of people, the way I understand around here, don't have a problem letting somebody freeze out there at wintertime. As far as the drug out, the CI, the one that they brought in was one that had the drugs in the house, but I didn't know about, stairs and beds, the second day, the dog with the donut glaze and the daily bread. Now, you go and look at their report, it says meth. There was no meth. As far as anybody being there, when I turned around, and kicked everybody out, that's why the shooting occurred. Because I wouldn't let nobody come in my house to sell drugs. But dude, you can't defend yourself. There ain't much you can do about it. I wish you guys could live through the same situation I did. And the person that turned around and tried to break in whose ever house said it was, had nothing to do with us. And as far as the children coming down around the corner, maybe they're catching a bus. Because no children are allowed in my house. Anyhow, have a great day. And I'd like to be able to sell my house if that's a possibility. I got 3 people wanting to buy it right now. I'll let it go for a $70,000 loss to get rid of it. So we turn around and I can get out of here. That's up to you people.
No.
Good evening, Vince Emmerich, Chief of Police. Was everyone able to receive and look over the report of the Rhino Team Commander? I received that just shortly before the meeting there, but that outlines the drug activity, the raids that have been conducted on the property, as well as what they found there. It's described as distribution quantities of methamphetamine, crack cocaine, and heroin throughout the residence, as well as a significant amount of packaging materials indicative of narcotics distribution. So Lieutenant Sean Street, the team commander for Rhino, this is a house they're very familiar with. This is a house they've spent a lot of time at. We have had several calls, not as many as some others that we have been talking about, other properties we've talked about. But the nature and the severity of these are much more intense. The shooting, we received a number of reports as to why that happened. That does not necessarily agree with what Mr. Klein said here. However, that case is still under investigation. So it has been an issue for a long time. I've never asked for or received such a letter from Rhino as this. That's how strongly they feel about it. Thank you.
If you are on Zoom and you are wanting to participate in the public hearing, you may as well.
Can I just freely speak at this point?
Yeah, about this, yes. You
Yes.
just
Okay.
state your name and if your place of residence, if that's the city of Adrian, or you don't have to.
My
give
name
your
is
address.
my name is Stephen Guerra, and I live at 607 East Front Street, so I'm across the street. I moved into the house 3 years ago and have known increased activity like leading up to that. When I say activity, I mean that there's people coming and going from the house all the time. And I'm not looking out the windows and watching everything, but you hear a car door, you hear things. And it's not usually the same people. They're different people all the time throughout the different years. Observant in nature, being an educator, and I see things and I just watch. And then since basically moving in, just within the last year, noticing 2 raids. Also, it's Front Street and Finch is a corner where there's a bus stop, and then Ormsby and Front Street on the other corner is also a bus stop too as well for the middle school and high school students. So there's a lot of children around there. Me having children of my own, having to explain to them what is going on across the street, why the road is blocked off, and all of these different things. So it's just increasing in basically things happening at that house that I understand I don't presume to know anything that's about there. I mind my business. If it comes across the street, then I asked anybody that's over there to just kindly go back to their own side of the street. But basically within the last year, it has ramped up. Just the other night, I think 2 or 3 nights ago, I was woken up at like 3 o'clock in the morning and to a car beeping. I look out the window, there's 3 cars in the driveway. It looked like someone was blocking someone else, but it was probably about 5 minutes of repeated horn honking throughout the night. And there had been several occasions where I was woken up and there was an individual at the door just knocking on the door continuously. No one was answering, but just knocking and knocking and knocking. And eventually you can either see someone be let in or they just eventually walk away. So those are common things that happen. Again, I try to mind my own business because it's on that side of the street. I'm not going to presume to know what's going on over there. But with children in the area, knowing that it's a bus stop, there is a lot of safety concerns too as well.
Hearing no more comments, I call this public hearing closed, and we will move on to the resolutions. Resolution R24-049 is from the City Commission. It is a resolution to authorize the Finance Department to enter into a contract services agreement for a 5-year extension of services with Clark Schaefer Hackett for the alternative scope of work option per the attached proposal. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Support.
Are there any commissioner comments or discussion on that?
The question I have is related, this is the approval of the alternative, which is about $1,500 less than the bid with the base that we currently have. So what are we going to forego in terms of services next year compared to what we received this year?
It's in the nature of the report that's prepared. Well, you won't get the ACFR like you get right now, but Nathan or Brian, do you want to just kind of go through the differences and
Yeah.
whether there's any significance to them?
I'll try not to get too technical. As far as the services that we perform from an audit standpoint, they don't change much. It's the same audit reports that you've always gotten. It's actual preparation of the report packet is where the cost savings are. So currently you prepare what's commonly called an ACT for Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. It's a very thick document that has a lot of supplementary schedules to the financial statements that aren't a required part of the basic financial statements, but they're prepared to submit to the Government Finance Officers Association to get a annual certificate, and they certify that you presented the ACT for in accordance with their processes. The alternative scope was to not do all the supplementary schedules, just have the financial statements, notes, MD&A, and required supplementary information, which is a much reduced scope of the report, but the audit services are essentially the same as what you receive now.
With online options, so John Q. Public, who wants to review the audit for the city this year compared to next year, with the reduction in the reports from the audit, are there opportunities for the public to find those types of reports and information on the city?
Yeah, they're still available at the same place on the State Treasury's website. They just want to be on the GFOA's. They're currently on the GFOA's website. They won't be there, but the city can still post them on their website, and they'll still be on the Michigan State Treasurer's website.
So, and we will post them on the website. We're not going to change the amount of reporting. It's just contained within the audit.
Nathan, do you want to comment on that?
So we actually, no, Nathan Owen, Finance Director. Good evening. It's actually posted on the website right now under Finance. So it's just going to be a smaller report. And we're not going to get the certificate of achievement for the full ACFR report. It'd be just a standard audit report.
So to Commissioner's question, in future years, we would still post those schedules to the website. It just wouldn't be contained in the report.
We would not post, the schedules are in the report, so we would not post the additional schedules like statistical tables, and that would not be part of the standard audit report.
So, so that wouldn't be, so there would be that, we would be
That's where
losing that.
that's where it pairs down in a standard audit report.
And there's no sharing of that information anywhere else as part of the city standard reporting.
There would not be with that, but there is an option to.
These are compilations that are created by the auditors.
Yes,
that otherwise don't
by us
exist.
together, yeah.
Statistical.
Additional schedules, yeah.
Compilations.
Yeah. But, and there's the option to continue with the ACFR if you all would like to, so.
And the difference in price is only $1,500.
I think it was 6,500.
For the audit, I think the difference was 1,500, but then the compilation piece, it was a pretty significant savings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think it was 6,500 total audit and assistance.
The scope of the audit is essentially the same, but it's on the time spent preparing all those schedules is where the cost savings is.
And the standard audit report still meets all state reporting requirements, so. I'm open.
I also encourage Nathan to talk to bond counsel, because that was the one question. A lot of the supporting schedules are debt related and revenue coverage related.
Can you come up to the microphone because they're not going to be able to hear you on Zoom?
I
Thanks.
encourage Nathan to talk to bond counsel as well, because I've never seen any negative impacts on bond ratings or anything from changing from ACFR, basic financial statements. I haven't seen a difference, but he reached out to bond counsel and they confirmed that they don't anticipate any change in bond ratings because of this or anything. So, yeah, that was just one other thing I want to make sure that he checked on.
And the The deputy city clerk and I were discussing, were you the second on that, Commissioner Benke?
Is that the second?
Yeah,
yes.
okay. We weren't sure who said it down here, so we were just confirming that. So we have a motion from Commissioner Roberts with a second from Commissioner Benke. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Schwartz?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry?
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss?
Yes.
Mayor Heath?
Yes.
Commissioner Banky?
No.
And Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Resolution R24-050 is from administration. It is a resolution to declare 616 East Front Street to be a public nuisance. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
So second.
Is there any commissioner comment or discussion on this?
The question I have is, so if we board this house up and make it a public nuisance, timeline before, what's the quickest it would go back on the books, or what steps and hurdles do we need to overcome to make sure that this solves the problem?
So we have to, Burke can expand on this, go into circuit court to actually get the authority to do the boarding up. We've done that a few times for other similar properties. That will take a couple months at least. Once we have the order and do the board up, it stays boarded up for a year per the ordinance. If that answers the question.
And then at the end of the year, what's the what are the options for the
Well,
owner?
I mean, it can be reoccupied within the parameters of the property maintenance code generally. At that point, having gone vacant, it will not have a certificate of occupancy anymore, and so it would have to achieve a new certificate of occupancy to be occupied another time.
Okay, and then with within the timeline, because it would be over a year, so would the vacant property ordinance kick into effect, and then would that require an inspection during that year that it's offline to do potential upgrades to the structure?
That's not been our practice. We don't, they're boarded up. We don't occupy, we don't do a vacant property inspection on drug houses. But like I say, because it goes vacant, then it cannot be reoccupied until it gets a new certificate of occupancy. And so it'd have to be approved by the building official for compliance with the residential building code before it could be reoccupied.
And blight in the neighborhood, so that would be maintained on the outside as well as the inside, with the trash in the backyard would be removed and that sort of thing? Or
Yeah, we treat it like any other property as it relates to the exterior. That would be within, anything that is there currently would be within the scope of the circuit court's order, I would anticipate, for the time that we do the boarding up. And then if, like the weeds grow or whatever, we'll send the mowing contractor out and there'll be a bill for mowing.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have one more question. Would Mr. Klein be able to sell the property while it is in that 1 year time span?
Defer to the city attorney on that.
I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but this is a court order from state statute. This public nuisance. That of course doesn't take into account the point of sale ordinance or anything else that's going on. But there's nothing that says that I know of that he can't do it, but it would not, you cannot go inside the home.
I have a question.
Oh.
I want.
No, it's not public comment right now. Thanks.
I do have a comment. I would like to thank everyone that came out and spoke today about this. And I am grateful, and I know your neighbors are probably grateful that you all called law enforcement. Sometimes I know that it doesn't feel like you're being heard, and you have to make those calls repetitively. Because sometimes it takes them a little time to do their job. But I am grateful that you all called, and I'm grateful that you all stepped up today to help us make this decision. And I just want you all to know that your voice is not unheard, and it did not fall on deaf ears today, and we are very grateful for you. Thank you for all the work that you do for our community.
And I do want to, I do have an employee that lives on the corner, really close to this house, that saw it on the agenda but could not attend tonight and has two small children and is afraid to ever take them outside because of this house. And so that's been we heard that tonight, but that has been reiterated to me in person as well for that reasoning. We have a motion from Commissioner Castleberry with a second from Commissioner Banky. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Banky,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving on to Resolution R24-051, it is from Police. It is a resolution to authorize purchase of a patrol vehicle. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Support.
Is there any commissioner comment or discussion at this time?
I just thank Chief Emmerich for the explanation for the purchase process.
We have a motion from Commissioner Gauss with a second from Commissioner Miller. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Banky,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz.
Yes.
Motion carried.
What was Resolution CR 24-135 has now been renamed since it is under the regular agenda for resolutions. It is R 24-052 from the City Commission. It is a resolution to approve the 2025 City Commission meeting schedule. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Support.
Are there any commissioner comments or discussion on this?
So on the list for February 17th, Martin Luther King Day is not February 17th. This meeting will be rescheduled for the Martin Luther King holiday. And then on the actual resolution, in the third paragraph, it says federal holidays that fall on February 17th. February 17th is President's Day. So if we're including President's Day, we would stick with that. Otherwise, it would be Monday, January 20th.
The makers and supporters of the resolution accept those as friendly amendments.
Yes.
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 So the list is correct on January 21st being the meeting, which is the Tuesday, but the resolution does not support those days.
Okay,
It
thank you.
does now with the modification.
We'll make those two changes.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Gauss with a second from Commissioner Roberts with the proposed changes and edits. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Banky,
Yes.
and Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Commissioners, you have miscellaneous reports in your packet. Are there any questions or comments on those?
Question of, will there be a vacant property report monthly and a point of sale inspection report monthly moving forward?
I will be part of the code enforcement report.
At this time, we will begin general public comment. We will start inside the city chambers first. Just to reiterate, there is a 3-minute time limit, and for the record, please state your name and place of residence. When we have exhausted all comment inside the chambers, we will then open it up to the Zoom participants. And just to clarify again, that commissioners and myself will not respond to public comment. It is a time for you to comment, not a dialogue time. So just want to clarify again.
Well, thank you all. You have just saved me from my project 2025. This past Saturday, we had a second annual pickleball tournament at the senior center, and everybody was commenting on the new lights. They couldn't get over how light the whole place looks. But I notice under engineering CR 24-140, there's going to be some mechanical upgrades. They need to fix one of the sinks in the ladies' bathroom. It's had a sign on it for over a month. Thanks again.
Keith Miller, City of Adrian. Talk about the Adrian Inn. I know we give $800,000 for it, and I'd hate to see us give it to the college for $1, because I know that's probably what's in somebody's schedule. But I think, and I'm not no lawyer by any means, but why can't we sue Riverview Terrace for unjustifiably throwing a strain on the city of Adrian, financial strain on us? We had to step up, provide housing for them residents, why they were negligent on their building maintenance. Also, let me see where I was going with this. Oh, the house on 616 or Frank Street or whatever. You guys just forced this guy to give this house away because he's never going to fix the house, being the point of sale. The house is never going to be able to be sold because it's going to need fixed after this happens. So this guy's going to end up, that's going to be another city burden right there, because you guys are going to get this house and we're going to have to tear it down. We're tearing down all these other buildings and it's costing us money. You guys give away our tax money like it's nothing. The Adrian Daily Telegram, how much is that going to cost to tear down? Anybody know? If we don't get approved for the hazardous waste on it, how much is that going to cost? It's money we don't have, but you guys are throwing it out the window like buckets. I don't understand it. I mean, it's not your money, it's our money. Like the oil revenues, that's the city of Adrian's money, that's the taxpayers' money. It's not the city's money, it's the taxpayers' money. You guys are going to spend it on Bone Pool. Why don't you make Bone Pool part of the parks and let that fund that we have for the parks pay for the renovations of Bone Pool? That money that you're getting from the oil review, the oil can be used someplace else. Put it out so we can, fix up the houses around here. $300,000 a year, $150,000, whatever you guys are getting on it, that could be used someplace else. I don't understand why we think we can spend money when we don't even have it. Thank you.
Hearing no more comment inside the chambers, we will now open it up to the Zoom participants. Hearing no comment from the Zoom participants, it is now commissioner comments. Commissioners, do you have any comments?
One comment just related to our rental inspection. So every month we get kind of a generic inspection report. So this month we see that there were 167 rental inspections. And the context of that for us as a commission or for individuals in the public, there is no concept of that. So 167 out of how many rentals? So I guess my suggestion here would be how many rental properties do we have recorded? We did 167 out of 10,000 rental properties. How many of the 10,000 rental properties are currently up to code? up to our inspections. How many are in year one? How many are in year two, year three? How many are brand new because they're new rental properties? That would have a much better understanding of how well we're staying on top of rental inspections rather than just having 167 inspections when there's no context to even know, I don't know if 10,000 is even an actual number of how many rental properties we have registered within the city, which then leads to the vacant properties as well. So with that new ordinance in place, I thank Mrs. Dunaway for the list of vacant properties that she provided and how we can have that reported on our list, and then how we can make sure that how many vacant properties do we have registered in the city and how many of those are in the process of being inspected or inspected so that we can see the progress being made on that. Same thing would be true with the point of sale inspection. And then lastly, last meeting I asked for the enhancement grant and the budget from that $15 million that we received. So as we continue to approve budget aspects of that to see how much is remaining in that, and I haven't received that. So if we could get that as a commission, that would be appreciated.
With the action we just took on Front Street, I like Commissioner Castleberry, I appreciate all of you coming here and speaking up for your neighborhood. That took a lot of courage. You're going to have courage for a little while longer, just so you know. I wanted to make sure you heard our attorney that that's the first step in this process, and that there are going to be other steps that have to go through the court system now. So it's not going to be an immediate thing that's going to happen. So be a little patient with us. If you have concerns, though, on where we're at in the process with the court system, please let us know. Thank you.
I, again, wanted to thank everybody, and I talk about it a lot, but I'm a veteran. I was a sailor, and I served aboard a destroyer, so it was a small ship. And on ships, our racks are stacked 3 high, and that's where we live. You don't get barracks when you're attached to a ship. You live in racks stacked 3 high. So if you can imagine, we had 30 females in a room a quarter of the size of this, and 3 toilets and 2 showers. And when you were out to sea, it was a wild ride. But it makes me think about how many people you have in we call them a berthing, right? That's where you stay on a ship. How many people you have in those rooms and sleeping, and we slept crazy hours, right? Some people work 6 on, 6 off, and you get to sleep that 6 hours off. And some of us stand 5 and dime watches and work all day too, so we're up half the night. And we still all had to get along in those small confined spaces. And so it's just interesting to me to see how politics have gone lately, and how conversations have gone. And some people do call us, or some people email us, or even fellow commissioners don't have a conversation with others. And we like to call out negativity very quickly. So it's the holidays. I hope, for the next few weeks, we can all come together, enjoy Comstock Park. Let's have better conversation. The new year is coming. Let's have more positive conversation with each other. When you see a problem, I was raised, when you see a problem, don't come to me with your problem, come to me with a solution. I'm happy to hear them. Reach out to us. I understand that we can't do everything everyone wants, but I'm happy to have conversations. So with the new year coming, please reach out to us. Let's have positive conversations that make positive change instead of nitpicking. I really hope that in the new year, that's something we can do. And I think a lot of you started it today. I know it wasn't an easy subject to come and talk about, but I'm really glad that you did it. And I'm really glad that you've shared your comments and your thoughts. So I hope you all have a great holiday season and a new year.
Happy holidays, everyone. We'll see you in 2025, our bicentennial year. May I get a motion to adjourn? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.